Well, hello everyone. I wanted to go ahead and put together a little video here, audio lecture rather, to talk about parenting and parenting styles. This is actually mentioned in the material in your Revel, but I don't think they really give it enough time and credence. So I want to turn around and spend some time talking about these different parenting approaches if I can. Now, when it comes to parenting approaches, there are two elements that really influence parenting tremendously, and you see them there. They're the following terms of what we call warmth and control. Okay, so let me go through and explain what these two elements are, because if you're high or low on warmth as a parent, if you're a warm parent or a cold parent, if you're a controlling parent or not a controlling parent, really says a lot about how you may approach this. Okay, first of all, let's talk about warmth. When we in child psychology discuss parental warmth, what we're referring to is, as you see there, the degree to which parents are kind, caring, compassionate, responsive, just as it says, accepting of their children. Okay. Uh, to what extent? A lot of parents who are what we call very warm parents, they're high in warmth. These are caring parents, they are nurturing parents. And a big focus of who they are is their children. All right. In fact, you might even turn around and say that the child is the center of their life. Okay. And a lot of times that's how they see things. All right. Parents who are very high in warmth, very child focused, very caring, very nurturing, that kind of person. Parents who are low in warmth, okay, are more what we call self centered or parent centered than child centered. All right. They're more concerned about themselves than their children in this regard. And outward acts of compassion, outward acts of caring towards their children are very few. They don't do a lot of that. I remember years ago having a neighbor that it was a husband and wife, and they were both had been divorced and had married one another and brought children in, and they were much more interested in each other than they were the kids, who really did suffer. The kids had to find stuff to do on their own. Parents were not interested, so very low on the warmth scale. I do want to say this: we call these cold parents. And though I don't have it on the slide, I think it's important to note that research has found a correlation between parents low in warmth, cold parents, okay, and issues such as childhood aggression. Uh, Cold parents correlates with school performance and even popularity. So, being warm and nurturing and caring really goes a long way. And then we have what we would call parental control. When we speak of control, what it basically means is this: to what extent, to what level are you as parents willing to set rules and stand by rules, okay, on your children? One example that I have seen for this, right, is the following. It's 8 p.m. Do you know where your children are? Okay. This says a lot about your level of control. You know, how you answer this question says a lot about your caring in this regard. You might say, I know exactly where my kids are, I know what they're doing, and I know who they're with. On the other extreme, the answer may be, it's 8 p.m., do you know where your children are? And they say, I don't know, and I don't care. All right? So, very low on the control in that regard. Um, that to me, that's a good way of summing it up. So we've got warmth and we've got control. Now let's talk about the four types of parenting. Okay. The first type we're going to talk about is what is called authoritative parents. Authoritative parents tend to be high on the warmth scale and high on the control scale. All right. These children, these parents rather, tend to monitor their children closely. They know where they are, they know what they're doing. Okay. That's because they typically have good communication with their children. All right. That communication goes a long ways. Where are you going? Who are you with? What are you doing? Talk to me. What's on your mind? Okay. What do you think? You communicate with your children. There are expectations, and they are clear cut expectations. All right. The rules to live by are made very clear. Okay. This is what you can do. This is what you can't do. All right. That's part of the communication and the expectations for authoritative parents. And a lot of times, if a child does good, you let them know. All right. You reward them. You add a boy, add a girl. You listen, and so on. If they do good, you let them know. If they do bad, you let them know. Okay. Um, a lot of this style of dealing with reward and punishment is based more off of, how can I put this, rationalizing rather than instant punishment. Okay. If you have to punish, there's an understanding of why you're in trouble and so on and so forth. That doesn't mean that you let a child get away with talking about something for 30 or 40 minutes when they know in the first 3 or 4 seconds what they've done wrong. Well, let's just talk and talk and talk. No, you're communicating with them why they're in trouble, why they're grounded. This is how long, and we're going to stand by this. All right. And the same is true with rewarding them, letting them know they did a good job and why. So that's authoritative parents. Then there are what we call authoritarian parents. Authoritarian parents are high on the control, but very low on the warmth. Okay, very, very controlling, but not very compassionate. Okay, when it comes to communication here, and there is communication in authoritarian families, it's a lot more yelling, is what it is. All right, that's what it basically boils down to. Um, the rationalization really isn't there. Okay, that which you sometimes get in communication. The rationalization and the explanation may be things such as "I told you so," or "because I said so," or "my way or the highway," and that's as detailed as it tends to get. All right, these parents are big on punishment, but small on reward. The attitude sometimes becomes, well, they should know what to do, and therefore I shouldn't have to constantly reward them, and they won't take the time. But if the child messes up or makes a mistake or gets in trouble, then they will take the time to punish them. So, you know, that's a part of it. All right. Very big on punishment, small on reward. And like I said before, in terms of communication, the way they rationalize things, my way or the highway, um, because I said so, things of that sort. Research tells us that these children of authoritarian parents, often tend to resent their parents. Okay. They resent them more, and because of that, their school behavior and their behavior around their friends also shows that as well. It really, truly does. Okay, so it reflects that they just resent mom and dad in that regard. Then there are what we call permissive parents. Permissive parents are very high on the warmth scale, but very low on the control scale. All right, and so when it comes to these kind of parents, there are very few rules. One of the big things is they're trying to win their child's love. Okay. And in an attempt to win their child's love, there are very few rules. All right. You hear the saying once in a while, I'd rather be my child's best friend than their drill sergeant. They go to extremes to explain it. And if you take a look at this picture here, I can't say much about names, but the young lady you see there is with her mom. She is 14 years old. All right. She had turned 14. And yes, she already has a tattoo at age 14, got a couple of them, and drinking a beer at the party, the gathering, that kind of stuff. And in this case, mom is just grinning from ear to ear about all of this. She thinks it's so neat that her 14-year-old daughter is drinking and already has tattoos. I wondered if that could really be the case, real tattoos, but I'm told that you can get a tattoo with your parents' permission. And this child, trust me, it shows. It shows in their behavior and so on. Because there are few rules, there tends to be more impulsiveness in their behavior. Um, they 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 don't have parameters of what they can and cannot do. So what happens is these parents get manipulated by their children. All right, a phrase such as, "I hate you," or can be very painful, and teenagers will learn to use that. They'll use that to their advantage. All right. Um, they may set a rule and then change it and say, "Well, as long as you're good, it's okay." Um, I got to tell you, these parents often find that children without boundaries, with few rules, they are more impulsive. They're more of a rule breaker. And then there is what we call the rejecting or neglecting parents. With these kind of parents, they're low on the control scale and they're low on the warmth scale. All right. These kind of parents almost seem to resent their kids. Sometimes they became parents unexpectedly. They weren't planning on it, and suddenly there's a baby coming. So they resent or reject their kids, and they treat them accordingly in this regard, rejecting, neglecting parents. Um, we turn around and find that they often just ignore that role as parents. They just ignore them. Okay. And they do not spend time with them, and they do not care. If you go back to what I said earlier about 8 p.m., okay, it's 8 p.m. Do you know where your children are? The most typical answer you will get from parents who are rejecting, neglecting parents is that I don't know and I don't care. All right. And that's how they see it. They really, truly do in this regard. Um, why are parents rejecting, neglecting? Couple extra things that's not on the slide I want to mention. One reason is that they tend to be rejecting, neglecting because there's an inability to know what to do. They don't know how to be a parent. Um, Parenting is not something that comes automatically. Uh, how to handle children's needs, so they just ignore them. Or secondly, maybe there's an awful lot of stress on the parent. And so because of the tremendous amount of stress, they don't turn around and take the time to, be with their child and do those kind of things. Uh, we've seen parents that are dealing with depression or other forms of mental illness. That's a third one. And therefore, the kids get neglected. In my opinion, of the four parenting types, authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, and neglecting. All right. This is the category. All right. Children under this category suffer the most. They really do. They have the hardest time in school. They have the poor relationships with other children. It really, really does show. Okay. Now, some other notes that are definitely worth noting here. If you look at the four types, and I sort of disagree with the book because it doesn't say this. It does state this, but it leads you to believe that the authoritative style is always the best. And I'm here to tell you that, quite honestly, you cannot always assume, okay, that the authoritative approach is always the best and the other three approaches are not always the best. That's not true. If you have a child who is very altruistic, which means that they're very well mannered, good behaviors, take care of others, they're very positive kids, you might be able to get away with a more permissive style because they're going to stay within rules of good behavior. There are kids that you don't need the authoritative style; you need the authoritarian style. They're a handful. They're very challenging kids, and so rationalizing out isn't really always the best, believe it or not. You need to be quicker to control the behavior that's not good behavior. And I'm just quoting the research here. The authoritative approach is not always the best for everyone. What really can determine this is things such as temperament. Okay. We talked about that before. If a child is an easy child or a difficult child or slow to warm, that's a big one. um, and then basically we could talk about social cultures and things of that sort too. All right, folks, that's all for now. Keep up the great work.